Welcome to the Abundance Hack Show, Season 4, where we are focusing on mastery. The last 3 seasons, I gave you the information. Now, we're focusing on integrating it into our lives and embodying it. If you are ready to master your thoughts, emotions, and patterns to feel whole, fulfilled, and really grounded in who you are without dimming your shine so you can live the abundant life that you truly desire, then you are in the right place. Hey M&Ms, thank you for tuning in to the Abundance Hack Show. What are you manifesting in your life today? Today's guest is Dani Mae, and we are going to talk about breath work. So before we dive into her story and all that she does, Dani, I want to ask you, what does abundance mean to you?
I think gratitude and being satisfied with the mass amount of abundance that there is out there, that I think a lot of times we get stuck on not seeing what's like right in front of our face and accessible. So I think being like abundance, having like a bigger perspective on what's actually right in front of you.
I love that. I love that. And I was actually just talking to someone about expanding your vision. So I love that you said that. Yes. So tell us about you. Who is Dani Mae?
Um, so there's a lot of chapters, I think, to my identity so far on this planet, but I think right now I'm on a sincere mission to share the potential and power of breathing techniques, because they have in many different ways changed my life and definitely made me more abundant and given me access into that bigger vision and into that bigger perspective of, wow, okay, I actually have accessibility to this superpower of my nervous system through my breath, which therefore I can be and almost attain so much more than I thought was potentially possible. So I'm currently just sharing a ton of breathing techniques in all different types of ways with anyone and everyone who's willing to listen. Yeah.
Well, I definitely want, I love how you said breathe into abundance. I definitely want to dive into that, but I love to know like more of your backstory. Like, when did you first discover breath work, and how did it, like, what was that moment where it felt like it was changing your life?
So I'm about to turn 37 in 2 weeks, which my journey with breath, I would say, probably started when I was about 20. I had always been a social butterfly, and I just started having social anxiety out of nowhere. And then also, I was a long distance runner for years. And at 20 years old, I couldn't touch my toes. So I realized I had all this power and strength, but didn't have any of the flexibility. And then I was trying to like up my distances, and all of that was culminating at the same time I started having pretty bad social anxiety. And everybody from different ways was recommending, oh, you should try breathing techniques, both for the anxiety and then also to up my running game and just really tap into the parasympathetic so that my muscles could start to relax and maybe I could begin to reach my toes. And I finally gave in, because I think at first I was like, it's breath, like I breathe all day long. I'm pretty good at it. I've lasted this far. I don't need to, waste time going into something that seemed so simple. And when I finally gave in was when the anxiety kind of got to this point that I honestly was having panic attacks to where I couldn't drive. And I was like, okay, well, I live in Florida. I need to drive. It's, we don't have much like ease of public transportation here. So I started doing some breathing techniques, and within the first, I would say 2.5 minutes, it just landed and was like, whoa, I feel in control, where a lot of times I had felt out of control. And that was the first kind of like, I think, peek into the window or behind the blinds of, okay, there's actually something here. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
Happy early birthday.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really amazing. And I think that anxiety and like panic attacks are at an all-time high right now. And I feel like, and I feel like I say this all the time on my podcast, but we're inundated with so much information and things are moving so rapidly that I think people are in a constant state of fight or flight. And we don't know what it feels like for our nervous system to be calm anymore, unless we have these types of modalities in our normal routine.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, the belief and the confidence that we can change our current situation, whether that be our mindset, our emotional well-being, even our physicality and physical health. Like the breath gives you access to that. And once I finally realized that, then I just dove head first. I started studying all different types of pranayama techniques. I started studying a bunch of different modern breath work. So the main key is, a lot of times you'll hear people say breath work to encompass pretty much any breathing technique. But when you really get into the nuance of breathing techniques, when you're talking about breath work as one word, this is where we're really talking about things like holotropic, alchemy breath, where they're doing more of the mouth breathing. And it's more of like a circular breathing, not the circular breathing that you would do with instruments, but circular, meaning we're not really stopping in between the breath. And that can give you almost like a hack to an altered state of consciousness. So I went through a whole bunch of those. Then I started doing respiratory therapy techniques and pulmonology, and got into free diving. And I just legitimately went down any and every rabbit hole of breath. And the neat thing is whatever you can imagine, there's a breathing technique for it. So some people think, oh, it's just to relax. And it's like, yeah, you can totally relax. But if you want more energy, or if you need more confidence, or if you want to access a little bit of deeper of that subconscious or spiritual realm within you, there's legitimately breathing techniques that will carry you there.
I love it. So I want to know, because I've never heard anyone say like breathing for confidence. I'd love
Yeah.
to know. And then also breathing for abundance, because I feel like
Yes.
that's so fitting with the
Yes.
podcast. So yeah, let's dive into it. So how can you breathe to gain more confidence?
Well, think of the way, even how we're communicating right now, we're using our breath. So when you introduce yourself, you are using a breathing technique of phonation to carry your identity through to someone else. And a lot of times when we're laughing or giggling or crying, or we're kind of not able to project our voice in a certain type of way, that's all carrying through a certain emotion. So one of the things we try to do for confidence breathing techniques is get silly and get fun. So you'll do, some people can't do it with the tongue, but you can do it with the lips. It's a or and you just really get that vibration going to loosen up through the vocal cords, to loosen up through the lips and the mouth and the tongue, but to really give yourself funny noises through the breath to get up and get out. And it loosens not only the physicality of your voice itself, but your brain, that seriousness, that analytical side of you that's like, oh man, am I good enough? Am I doing it right? Did I say that wrong? And it just starts to irrigate some of that.
Yeah, because I feel like people would be like, oh my God, I'm gonna look ridiculous. Like, am I gonna look silly? Like, so just getting out of your head, I think, yeah, that's
And
cool.
even if if you're like about to do a meeting or you have a big speech, like run to the bathroom and just like, get it out, if you don't want people to see you. But usually if you do it in front of other people, it loosens them up as well. They're like, okay, first she's a weirdo, but two, that's kind of cool. Yeah.
I love it. Oh my goodness. So what about abundance? Like, how can breath help with abundance?
I think the first part is realizing your own potential and power. So for me, abundance really came when I gave into the acknowledgement that I had this power within me. And it really is like, breathing techniques are a true superpower because they let you take control of the levers and the dials of your nervous system. So anytime you're feeling overwhelmed or anxious or stressed or not confident, or like you don't have any energy, you don't want to get out of bed, you're unmotivated, you can't focus, all the things that are the common roadblocks where you think, man, I can't get to that next step, right? Like I can't, get that promotion, or I can't make enough money, or I can't bring this type of people into my life, whatever it is. The breathing techniques are those first steps of potential and power to bring you into the state that's going to attract more abundance into your life. So I think the first step would be awareness of like, what's your abundance block? Like, is it where you don't have the confidence? Is it where you don't even believe you deserve it? Is it you just don't have the energy to do the things that you knew if you did them, they could probably bring in some more, like movement into your life. So I would say that's like a hard one just to pinpoint on top of, like as abundance as a whole. But I think allowing yourself maybe even just to take in more breath, because ancient pranayama, they say like the more you breathe, the more you feel. So a lot of times you'll notice if we are in a space where, we don't really like the conversation we're having, or we don't like the person that we're having that conversation with, a lot of people will tend to hold their breaths. And they're doing that as kind of a protection, like, oh, I don't want to be here. I don't want to feel this. I'm just not going to breathe it in. I'm not going to absorb it. So you can allow yourself to just take bigger, deeper, fuller breaths, more conscious breaths, and giving yourself that open door of like, hey, I'm receptive, I'm open, because we can't be abundant if we're not open to receiving.
Yeah. And one thing you said is the more you breathe, the more you feel. And I feel like we're in a society that's numbing a lot of what they feel. So, can you speak to that a little bit? Because I think we have so many mind numbing activities like scrolling on social media and alcohol and drugs. And I mean, the list goes on. So, if someone's like, I don't actually want to feel, what would you say to them?
Absolutely. I think it's one of those times in society where, like you said, there's so much coming at you all the time. And I think both from just state of affairs, like what's going on in the world in so many different ways, but also the ease of accessibility to our attention span, right? So it's through our phones, through our computers, through, our loved ones, through all the mass media. All this stuff is like grasping at our attention, that we just are like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna like close the door, shut the windows, pull the blinds, and I'm just gonna numb out for a second because I can't handle it. And I think that a lot of us fall into that trap of just, hey, let's turn it off, let's get numb because I don't want to deal with it right now, so much that it becomes a habit, whether it's numbing out on the TV or a substance or whatever, that we don't realize maybe until later, like, wow, like I'm not even feeling, the joy. I'm not feeling the ecstasy. I'm not feeling all of these good, amazing things that abundance can bring into your life, because I just am so used to having to like shut off all the maybe not so great things. So I would definitely say that through the breath, because again, it's all a breathing technique. Like if you're laughing, it's a breathing technique. If you're crying, it's a breathing technique. If you're, surprised, if you're sighing, it's all like communicated through externally a breathing technique, but also internally. It's going to change the neuropeptides, the hormones that are going through your bloodstream. And you have a choice to realize that we're capable of dealing with all the shit, and all the beauty. So you have to allow yourself to know, okay, I can take a moment, breathe through it, rather than like holding the breath and blocking it, or just turning on the TV or grabbing for a beer or whatever it is to numb it, but letting yourself get skilled and capable and confident that, hey, I can move through any of these emotions and any of these things that are going on in the world. And then I'm more equipped and capable not only to deal with that, but to deal with all of the other amazing stuff that's going to come my way after it's almost like cleaning the closet or cleaning the room, like now that I've got all this other stuff out of the way and breathe through it, now more stuff can fit in and come through.
In your hand is your flame. It's your soul. It's your light. You need to surround yourself with friends who, when your light is shining bright, they don't feel the need to blow it out. And when it gets windy and stormy, you want a good friend who sees your light dimming and cups their hands around it to protect it a little bit. This is a reminder we are built for connection. You deserve the love and support that you desire.
One thing that I love about breath work is you can do it anywhere, anytime, and it doesn't require like, if someone comes to one of my sound therapy sessions, like you're committing an hour, but breath work you can just do anytime. So I feel like it's something that people should have some type of, even if it's quick, like a daily breath work practice. So if someone has never done any breath work before, what is something that you would recommend them doing just to start out with that they can just do at home? Or if it's like a busy mom or a busy entrepreneur?
I would say definitely it's called a 2-part isolated breath, which is a voloma that we use. And you're just breathing 3 seconds into your belly. You're pausing for 3 seconds. Then you breathe in again for 3 seconds into your upper chest. You pause for 3 seconds. You exhale for 3 seconds from your belly, pause for 3 seconds, exhale for 3 seconds from the upper body, pause for 3 seconds, and then complete the cycle. And this connects you both to the respiratory breathing technique. So you're allowing yourself to feel your body, right? You're getting that somatic connection. It's also giving you a connection more to the physiology, the way that your heart is beating and the way that that respiratory rate is going, because your respiratory system and your circulatory system are best friends and like business partners. So however you're breathing, your heart's going to have to react to, and whatever your heart is doing, your breath is going to have to react to. So it allows you to take a little bit control, to slow down, but also to connect and really get that feel of, oh, this is my gut. Oh, this is my heart space, and giving yourself those pauses in between just to linger. And I really love that breathing technique. I think it covers a lot of bases, and it's pretty simple.
I love it. So I know you said you studied a lot of different breathwork techniques. So like, if you had to put a number on like how many you're familiar with, because I feel like there are a lot, and yeah, how many have you studied?
So my signature offering that I offer twice a year is called breath technique training. And in that, I teach people over 60 different breathing techniques.
Wow.
And that's just the part one of the beginning. And then I do a breath teacher certification after that as well, where we go over at least another 40. So I would say well over like 500 different breathing techniques.
Yeah. That is amazing.
Yeah. There's so many. And I think that that's what people don't realize too. At least I did in the beginning. I thought like, oh gosh, it's so simple, but there's so many variables that you can play into the breath, whether it's how you're inhaling, what muscles you're using to inhale, the sharpness, the volume, the pressure, the speed. There's, your nostrils, your mouth, like there's just so much that goes into it that can change the physiological and mental response of how your body responds to it.
Wow, that's impressive. I love that. So you do full, because I know you have a space in St. Pete, right? So
Yes.
so you do like full, like I don't know your services. Like I know, like I do like an hour sound bath. Like, do you do a full hour of like breath work?
Yeah, so we at the Collective St. Pete, we currently offer morning classes at 7:30 a.m. that are an hour of breath. Those are a little more traditional pranayam, respiratory therapy, free diving kind of techniques. So we allow people to stay seated or lay down, but it's usually recommended to be seated. And it's in ancient pranayam, they talk about how asana, the physical postures, prepare the body for pranayama. And then pranayama, the breathing, prepares the brain for meditation. And in the West, a lot of people, they've either jumped into the yoga postures and then right into meditation, or maybe they just skipped the postures too and tried to go right to meditation. But a lot of people skip over the breathing techniques, and the breathing techniques legitimately are this paved, beautiful road to get you to like the house of meditation. So the hour of breath that we do in the mornings is this amazing meditation preparation that just really brings you into a state that, like, I'm not a morning person, but I do it in the mornings because it's just so worth it to start my day that way. And then I also do a class on Wednesday evenings, which is called Breather Community. And we do a little bit like still more pranayama based, but also what is called dynamic form breathing, which is a lot more energizing. And then we talk and we kind of have discussions of the subconscious techniques of what they kind of brought up. And then a couple of times a year, I do what's called a breathwork breakthrough. I actually have one coming up on October 2nd. And that's where we go into the more holotropic alchemy type of altered state of consciousness breathing, where you're laying down the whole time and you start to hyperventilate in certain patterns, and people will end up like screaming or crying or laughing uncontrollably. But most people usually have some kind of breakthrough and epiphany of, whoa. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually did a workshop like that recently, and I have to say, if I'm being honest, I wasn't a fan of that, just because I felt like it opened up like Pandora's box without like a support, or like a support system after, of like, now what do I do with all these emotions that I just, drummed up? So for me, I think, so it's not the breath technique itself, but I just felt like my nervous system was a little like shaken up, of like, okay, you just put me through this, like now what, that specific type of workshop. So I'm sure everyone does it differently to where they have an integration and support system after. But that was that was my experience with it.
Yeah, and actually, so my company, Breath Guidance, we use a very particular building block of the breathing technique for that, more of those kinds of styles. And a lot of those intense styles of breath work, they do no preparation. So they kind of just throw you into the right away without like any other foundational breathing techniques. And then they're like, oh, okay, see you later, you know, which for me, I think is, and I just think it's irresponsible. I think that you don't know, especially if you don't know your people, if it's a group class and it's not like a private one-on-one session and you haven't really done a deep intake with the person, you have no idea if they have trauma, if there's PTSD, if they have even medical conditions where there's contraindications. So I think that people should be a little bit more careful and aware of when they're doing these types of offerings to really be prepared of what you can do to not only prepare your people to give them the true list of contraindications and stuff, but also real integration and real resources afterwards to be like, hey, these things now might happen, and letting them know that beforehand, right? And then really giving them tools and techniques that they can use to allow themselves to integrate afterwards, which is how it's kind of why I built Breath Guidance the way I did, because I realized like all of these really different styles of techniques need to have kind of a thread sewn between them so people really understand when can you apply them to what type of person in what type of situation. And then it's like building your own diet or your own meal. Like we're not all going to eat the same things or need the same nutrients in that same form. So allowing yourself, and you know, the breath is, it's how you're living and you're feeding your cells. So it's really intimate in how you allow yourself to build that structure.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. I think like everything you said, I agree. But I do feel like making sure that there is integration period and support after is definitely like best practice when you're facilitating this. And so if someone's thinking about taking a breath workshop, making sure that you're going to someone that will have those resources after. Yeah. So yeah, I love it. So if someone wanted to, do you do anything online?
Yeah, so breathguidance.com is a whole breathing platform. There's a lot of different programs. There's a really cool like free program that's on there too, just to give people like a taste and an introduction to the variations of all different breathing techniques that there are. But I built Breath Guidance because I spent so much time, energy, money traveling all over the place, like learning all of these different nuance of techniques, to where I wanted a place where people, one, they were more accessible through affordability, but also online. And you can get all of the different theories without somebody being like, hey, this is the right way and this is the wrong way, you know? So Breath Guidance is really a platform that gives you all different types of styles or applies all different types of modalities. And like the main thing that I offer is breath technique training, which is 6 weeks, teaches you over 60 different breathing techniques. And then if people want to learn how to teach, then I do the in-person certification. But there's also like a breath hold program, a pregnancy program. We even have a program for like women's cycle, depression, anxiety. So for people who are like, hey, I don't really want to learn the science and the philosophy behind this, I just have this thing and I know that breathing can help. So there's those kinds of programs as well.
I love it. And what about sound healing, like integrating? Because that's one of the things I plan on doing with my studio, is just a little bit of breath work to kind of get people into their body right before a sound bath. So do you have any tips? Because I know I have a lot of sound healers that follow me. Any tips for sound healers that want to integrate breath work into their sound therapy practice?
Yeah. And it's neat because the way that the breath reacts with the body in the sense of setting the heart rate and the brain waves, that's what music does. And when you combine them together, it's so much more powerful. I used to do events called Sound of Breath, where I would link up with, you know, sound healers of all different kinds. And we would just have like this cool intuitive dance of where the people through their breathing was then inspiring the sound healer to have that intuitive movement of sound to carry them as well. But I would say the primary thing that they can definitely do is getting them into a breathing rhythm that can build, or getting them into a breathing rhythm that continues to carry with the music that they're doing. So it definitely depends on the instruments that you're using. If you're trying to have like something that's a lot more therapeutic versus something that's a lot more upbeat, but allowing them, because like, let's say for instance, if you're using sound bowls, you can have them vocalize with it. Or if that's a little bit too much, you can have them do what's known as a ventilation, and you're just extending the exhale really, really, really long. And it's almost like a whistling, hissing whisper that you carry through to the sound or the note that they're carrying. There's a lot that you can do, but I think allowing them to learn and to open up to that modality, to where the more you know and the more you've experienced yourself as a sound healer, the more you can start to apply it, and having your people kind of carry that rhythm within their body as well as what you share outside of their body too.
Oh my goodness. So good. I love it. And I'm going to have you do an interview like specifically for my sound therapy group, but that's a different topic. All right. So to wrap it up, what are your top 3 tips for living an abundant life?
I would say be aware first and foremost that it's all out there. Legitimately, everything and anything you can want, it's out there. And the world is abundant in so many ways that I think we lose sight of that, or we forget that. So I would say awareness of abundance first and foremost. 2, knowing that you have this superpower of breath within you, that you can take control of it to access your subconscious, to access your physiology, your mental health, your emotional health, your physical health. Like, it's there within you. So you have that power. And then 3, tying that together. So having that awareness of abundance being out there, the awareness of the superpower, and then taking action, like using the breathing techniques, learning the breathing techniques, and allowing yourself to open up to like the beautiful magic that you want out in the world, and giving back too.
I love it. So where can people find you online?
Breathguidance.com is definitely the main place to find me. There's a button as soon as you go to the breathguidance.com where you'll see a free program. I definitely recommend getting that. It's legit amazing. It has guided audios, worksheets, videos. It gives you a really good foundation of like, ooh, this is how to be more aware of my breath and the types of techniques that I can use. And then also, if you are local to Tampa Bay area, coming and checking out the breathing classes at the Collective St. Pete.
Awesome. I will definitely have her links in the show notes so you can check her out. Go ahead and get the freebie. I think I'm going to go get it as well because I know how important breath work is and just really connecting back to our body. So I love everything that you're doing. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
I feel like we should do a workshop or something together. Like,
yes,
it needs to happen.
Yes.
All right, M&Ms, until next time, be decadent.
Thank you for tuning in to the Abundance Hack Show. I would love to hear from you. Leave your comments and questions, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of our yummy episodes. Every time you leave a 5-star rating or review, I do my happy dance.